Member of Ialibu-Pangia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, me like working legally contribution lo sambla totoki Governor of Morobe Hon lo sideway totok lo provincial government na DDA na Joint Budget Priority Committee. O this pla totok, yes, I'm true. Also, Supreme Court working sambla decision. Working sambla decision, and it's incumbent on this Parliament and of course government to review that decision and make the appropriate changes to the legislation so that we can correct some of the issues that have been going wrong since the reforms that took place, and subsequent governments have been trying to correct it. Mr. Speaker, there is a concern. The organic law and of course the Constitution says that elected members in any assembly must be elected to one house only. Whether it's a National Assembly of National Parliament or Provincial Assembly or local level government council. That law is very clear. But we continue to breach that. Now we have governors and members of parliament and of course presidents of LLGs who are members of the provincial government. We are only supposed to be members of one legislature. And that is that if we are elected to this parliament, we are supposed to be members of parliament only, not all in two positions. So the issue is about total reform. Whether this house has got the ability to make those tough decisions, where the governors are prepared to go back to the provinces and run the provinces, where the members of parliament are prepared to be just members of this house only, where the presidents of LLGs are prepared to be the presidents at LLG only. That is why some of the changes we tried to make was that at the provincial level, the initial state was for the LLG presidents to go back to the LLGs and get the provincial government and the national government to fully fund them properly so they can be operational at that level. And Mr. Speaker, where that provincial members should be elected directly like we used to do before. So they become members of the provincial assembly. And of course they become chairmen and so forth. So this is the challenge that we have in this house. We don't necessarily have to go back to court to do our job. We must be prepared to make those tough decisions. The decisions that if we are prepared to not try and control everything. The issue about DDA is because in many provinces throughout the country, even the provincial government is not looking after the districts. They are starving them of funding. Especially when there's political differences, most of those districts that are on the opposite side don't get any funding, zero funding whatsoever. The people in those districts, Mr. Speaker, are citizens of this country, are members of your province. They deserve education, they deserve health services, they deserve better roads, they deserve power and water and everything else that we take for granted. So, Mr. Speaker, it is about leadership and political will for us to making these tough decisions. And I understand where the governor is coming from, thinking that we are now going to continuously fund districts and not forget about the provinces. But in the wisdom of our forefathers, they have created these three-tier governments for us. They knew that leadership must be at every level, at community, at district, at the province, and at the national level. And their wisdom is right, Mr. Speaker. We need to capture that and honor that and, of course, drive and put our thoughts in making sure that that works in this country. And, of course, the funding goes directly and there's no blockages along the way. And that is why when we created DDA, that is because we didn't want the blockages at the levels of government where none of the funds that even our budget provides for ends up in the district. Some districts become as if they are not even part of this country. Today, at least we get some funding through these districts where we can now continue to maintain roads and maintain services that our people deserve. That is why we have the DDA. DDA is not a legislative or structure of government. It is not taking the role of local level government. It is not taking on the role of the provincial government, but it is a service delivery mechanism where they are controlling some funding to make sure that the minimum services go down. And I understand that the Prime Minister made an announcement in Medan that he will increase the funding to 20 million to each district. Now that is welcome news. But even today we are struggling to fund the 10 million, so let's get that out of the way first, before putting all our expectations too high and every citizen in this country thinks that every member of parliament is receiving that kind of money, when in fact we are not. Some of us are getting 5-6 million kina a year, but we maintain services to continue to flow to our people. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the call by the Governor for Wenge and Governor for Morobe. Let's review this. Now, governors don't have to come into this honorable house, and they have a province to run. But give them the money to go and run this province. They're here because some of them, because they are not getting the funding, so they have to go and follow the Prime Minister around and ministers around, so make sure that the funding continues to come to the provinces. Mr. Speaker, let us remind ourselves that we are legislators. We are not elected to follow checks around in Wagani Swamp. We are legislators. We have to provide the vision and the plans for our country to be developed through legislature.
We have a point of order. What's your point of order, Honorable Governor?
Mr. Speaker, I'm curious because the last time I mentioned the word Wagani Swamp here, I was asked to withdraw that by yourself. But it's been mentioned again, so I'm curious. Are we having double standards here? What's going on? But I do agree with much of the debate by the Honourable Member for Ialibu-Pangia.
Thank you.
Yes,
For
valid
point of
points.
order, you, Honorable Member of Ialibu-Pangia. And point of order is straight, you're also Wagani Swamp.
Wagani Swamp exists, Mr. Speaker. Wagani Swamp exists. If you don't know, I'll take you there myself.
Literally, yes, Wagani Swamp may exist, but inside the context of talk, yeah, mean Wagani Swamp.
All right, me replace him. Me not withdraw him, but me replace him with the Wagani Center. Am I right?
Me all right.
So me talk also. Now we are going to Wagani chasing for checks and projects. And members of parliament and governors should not be doing that. They should be given the allocations that they deserve and allocated in the budget directly so that they can stay home and do some work. Our people are in need of that attention. And it is important that this honorable house works together, and we will support this. If there are serious reforms coming through, make the adjustments in the provincial government structure and, of course, the LLGs, we are prepared to support that. So, Mr. Speaker, DDA is not a bad concept. It is not a bad concept. And some of the leaders, because we are not working together, we think it is not working. But where some of us are working well, it is delivering the services to some of the remotest places that never received services before, only because of that funding. So, Mr. Speaker, let's try and make sure that we have accountability in the discharge of those funds, and then it will work. The delivery of services will continue to go down to the people who truly deserve. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the second issue that I want to bring up is about the economy. Mr. Speaker, I know that the budget allocated for some support for our men and women and citizens in this country because of the cost of living that is continuously going up. Today, the prices are continuously been driving upwards almost on a weekly basis. If you go shopping, you will see basic goods that our people are depending on. Our prices are too high. When is the government going to establish the Price Controller's Office? The responsibility has been passed on to ICCC, but now we realize that ICCC is overwhelmed, and they're understaffed to go and inspect prices at every level. And I think it is important that some of these traders out there are overcharging our people, Mr. Speaker. And our people are really suffering. They can't even 3 meals a day. They're going down to 1 or no meal. And this is a serious concern that our government and this House needs to address. And the second point relating to that, Mr. Speaker, while the prices of goods are going up, prices of services are going up, wages has not increased. We need to establish the minimum wages board immediately, Mr. Speaker, and tell them to review the wages for ordinary men and women in this country. Why is it that it is so difficult to establish that board? Why is it difficult to direct them to go out there and start having meetings and consultations to review the wages so that it can be in line with inflation and the growth of the increases that the prices of goods and services in this country? So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important also, we may look sa wala samblable, this is something immediately. We are looking at big things, but we are not looking at small things that matter to our people. So I'm Grievance Blamilo today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me time to work in this lady talk. Thank you.